New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here today. If you're back again because you've been following us for some time, welcome back. I'm glad that you're here. And for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, I'm really glad that you're here as well, because you have come across a show, a podcast, a platform where we have conversations. We have conversations with individuals that are channeling their time, their talent, their energy, resources, their creativity, and their love into doing good work in the world. And my guests make a difference. We have a diverse pool of guests coming from all walks of life. And today I have a special guest, Dr. Soni Cantrell-Smith, and here she is, there she is. And Soni is the current leader, spiritual director of Centers for Spiritual Living. I have been reading through your bios and I'm trying to pick out, what can I say? How can I introduce you? And I think I'll touch on a few things, but I think our conversation will lead us and the viewers through to really get to know you, the work you do, and why you do it. So Soni is the founding minister of Ahava. Is that how you say it? Ahava. Ahava Center for Spiritual Living in Lexington, Kentucky. She is steeped in the principles of science of mind and is a lifelong student of the philosophy. For 10 years, she was the music director at Namaste CSL in Long Beach, California. She's been very active in the 12-step work for more than 30 years and has served with CSL, Centers for Spiritual Living, for many years. And as I mentioned, is currently the spiritual leader. And so welcome, Soni. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
So we met a month ago. We saw each other at the Unity Village at the Anton, the affiliated New Thought Network annual retreat. And you've been there for the last couple of years. And I've heard about you prior to that, but this is when I really got a sense of who you are and the work you're doing, and want to know a little bit more. And I know that many of our viewers are familiar with you too. And I'm hoping to learn a bit more about your beginnings and your life early on, and how you found your pathway to be part of Science of Mind, Religious Science, Centers for Spiritual Living. So where did it all start? Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in northeastern Kentucky and southern Ohio. In what most people refer to as Appalachia. I'm actually a bona fide hillbilly. My father was a moonshiner and a gardener. We grew our own food. My mother worked in a restaurant as a cook for many, many years just to help support the family. We grew up very poor And the only reason we ate well is because we grew our own food, and of course had farm animals and chickens and all of that. So I think that probably one of the things of interest for me is that, or interest for your viewers, is that my mother was a physical healer.
Mhm.
And I've talked about this often, that she had the ability to physically heal. So many people in our area knew about it, and she was pretty prolific in her work. One of the things that she often did was quote scripture. She kept two books on her nightstand by her bed, and one was the Bible, um, the Jewish Bible, and the other one was Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Ralph Waldo Emerson's book, his essays, were actually a required reading when she was in the 8th grade. So
Wow.
I know, it's very interesting to me. I still have the book. It's very small, but it's interesting to go through and read and see, her notations.
Is it a dark blue colored book?
No,
Oh, 'cause
no,
I
it's
have
actually,
an old copy and it's dark blue.
yeah. This one is late 1800s, I believe.
Okay.
It's a grayish book. I have it actually inside something else to try and help preserve it, because we had a fire at one time and it got just a little singed. So I try to take care of it as best I can.
Mm.
But one such episode with my mother, which I often share too, is that we used to have one of these old percolators. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're aluminum coffee percolators. They're aluminum. They had a little white thing in the middle that when the coffee was done, it would start percolating up. And I came into the kitchen one morning getting ready for school, and I was running into the kitchen to have breakfast before I caught the school bus. And as I ran into the kitchen, my mother was taking the boiling pot of coffee off of the stove, and it spilled on my shoulder. And the pain was instant and excruciating. And my mother just set the coffee down, grabbed my arm, and then began to circle the burn. She wet her lips and then began to circle the burn and circle the burn. And it was almost as though she was in a trance, and continued to do that until it was just a tiny little dot on my arm. So I experienced it firsthand from my mother. And I thought when I was younger that everybody could do this. It didn't seem like something that was special. But indeed it was, because when I got out into the world, then I realized that this was a special thing that my mother had, this ability to really go to that principle of oneness and that healing wholeness principle. She never had science of mind, so obviously she didn't know anything about it, but she was steeped in the law of the universe. And so it was remarkable. My mother was a remarkable woman, and so was my father. He was a remarkable man.
We'll talk about your dad in a minute. With your mother, did she have others that would come to her for healing work? And
Yes.
So you witnessed the other healings that occurred.
A few. She would really isolate those situations with other people so that she was alone with them. Very rare did I get to witness it, but I always knew that when they left, that there was something special that had happened.
Was this common knowledge within your family or within your friends or your community?
It was common knowledge within my immediate family. Oh yeah, and you have to realize that where I grew up was not a city, so it was, it was more of it was countryside, and so the individuals who knew about it were other farmers and neighbors and things like that, and most people knew about it. A lot of the a lot of us kids, when we'd be out playing softball or something like that, or baseball, boys and girls played together, and if we would lose the ball or something like that, somebody would inevitably say, well, just go ask Mrs. Allen, which is my maiden name. Go ask Mrs. Allen where the ball is, and she would know. In fact, there was something that was quite phenomenal to me when I was a teenager. There was a game out called Kreskin, and Kreskin was this medium or psychic, or a person who could foretell things or whatever. Anyway, he invented this game called the Kreskin game, and I got it one year as a teenager, and it had 5 cards of different colors with 5 symbols, different symbols. And so you had a screen that you put up between you and the other person, and it was designed to improve your psychic ability. And so I can remember distinctly one day asking my mom to play this game with me, and she sat on one side and I sat on the other, and you were to pick a card, and of course they couldn't see it. You were holding it behind the screen, and they were to guess what card it was, right? And my mother nailed every card every time.
Wow. Did that rub off on you? Did that confuse you as a teenager or a youngster, that
No.
you didn't have the same, sharpness, or did you?
No. I was, my mother was actually my aunt. I was adopted by my aunt and uncle when I was little. So it wasn't something that I aspired to or thought, oh, poor me, I don't have this ability or anything. But I do have I'm very intuitive with individuals. So other than that, I'm just your ordinary.
What do you make of that? What do you think why do some people have these abilities? Is it something that we can learn, or do you think it's just some kind of connection, that you're wired with, or when you're born?
Well, I think it's both and, I think yes, we can definitely learn to be more intuitive, picking up signs. I mean, there's master classes on all of this, how to be more intuitive, how to be able to pick up signs with, what people do and how they act. Mind readers, that's what Kreskin was calling himself, a mind reader. But I also think that there are people who come into this world that are born that perhaps are more in tune or have that ability at a greater degree. So I don't think it's either or. I think it's both and. And the important thing is, for me, is not to question, why, but to really just go with it and try to, really delve into it a little bit more, if that makes sense. My mother was, she just went with the flow. She was a very calm, she wouldn't say that she meditated. into that. You have to remember that this was an Appalachian woman who had a job that worked in a restaurant that cooked for truckers, to make extra money. But she didn't know anything about, and she only went to the 8th grade. So she wasn't really voiced in science of mind, or no one told her that she couldn't heal. She just was this woman, farm woman or country woman or mountain woman, whatever you want to, whatever turn of phrase you want to use. But she just did what she did and never questioned, the power that she had within, and never thought that it was hers. She always gave, that blessing to God, it was something that was, it was a gift that she had that was given to her, and she made use of it in a way that really supported the community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, wonderful. That must have been a really special environment to grow up in. Not that you knew any different at that age, but looking back. And you mentioned your dad. This was not your biological dad, but your...
No, it was my uncle. And he was well known through the town because he was a moonshiner, and would often people would often sample his wares.
I love that you take a drink right then.
Yeah, and of course he sold, made extra money selling moonshine here and there.
Was that like a dangerous thing to be a moonshiner?
It was against the law.
Right. So was that like everyone kept quiet about that, or was
pretty
it...
much?
Yeah.
Pretty much. You see a lot of TV shows where there's these moonshiners back in the hills doing all of this work, which was in the early days. That's absolutely what they did, and they would call the local sheriffs or the government that would come to look for the still, which it was called, which was an apparatus that they used to make moonshine. But they would always call those individuals revenuers, that were coming up to take their revenue away. But my father was never one of those. He was just made some stuff at home and, was pretty quiet about it. He and he was a farmer, of course, and so it was a close-knit community. Everybody helped everybody else out. So
what do you think are your takeaways from growing up on a farm in the mountains in a small community? What are some of the things that are still with you, and possibly that you're very grateful for?
Grateful for learning that community is important. When someone's in need, you help. You're of service, and that many hands make light work. When people come together to support someone in need, that it's really important that we're there, that the community is there to help people, whether it's a fire or someone's in trouble, or there's a lack of food, or anything like that. Whether it's raising a barn, because somebody's barn burned down, we all help. And so that's always been instilled in me, to be of service and to really promote that among volunteers for whatever occasion it may be.
Yeah, I grew up in the countryside as well, in a very small village. And when I think about someone growing up in a city, or today with all the distractions. I wonder if there's that same awareness around community and how we can be there to support each other, or if people that weren't born in, country settings, if that's as, organized their path forward to be of service to people, having had that experience, that lived experience of closeness and support. And I think that's it's something that's probably not felt as much these days. I live here in northern Utah, and there are lots of small towns, but there's not that same interaction that maybe happened 50 years ago or so. People are more reliant on, systems, new systems that have been put in place, and with TV and with, the communication through the internet, we're not as aware of that, the comfort and the joy and the richness of having close communities that maybe inspired you to some degree to want to move in the direction that you've moved in, as far as being a community leader throughout your adult life.
Well, I have to say that here where I live in my neighborhood, it takes me an hour to walk my dog because I'm always stopping to talk to my neighbors. My neighbors are we're a very close knit neighborhood, like an old fashioned neighborhood. With the exception that we have a Facebook account for the neighborhood so that we communicate with one another a lot. And whenever someone in our neighborhood's in need, we all rally around. So that's very comforting. And I know that in smaller areas, even though Lexington may not, it's around 350,000, which is not a huge town, but it's, it's enough, that's for sure. We have more of a neighborhood feel here. And that's very important, I think, for anyone to cultivate living in a neighborhood and cultivating your friends and getting to know your neighbors, because you never know when you're going to need them.
Yeah. I think it's very important. And for several years, I've been living sort of we haven't settled yet. We've been moving around ever since COVID. And there's a part of me that longs for that small town feeling where you go to the store and you know the people that work in the store, you see your neighbors, and that is, I think, due to growing up in that. Is that what took you back to Lexington?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it not so long.
Because you've moved. You've lived in California. You've been all over.
Right. Yes, I was in California for 30 years. And I was actually in ministerial school at Agape in Culver City. And I was in class, and we were doing a meditation, visioning, and I heard very distinctly that I was moving to Kentucky. And I thought it was a cosmic joke at first, but several things happened. And at one point I just said, all right, universe, if this is what you want me to do, then make it happen, and make it easy, make it effortless, and make it so that I am supported financially and emotionally. And I can't tell you, I tell this story to ministerial students quite often, or at least twice a year, when they're looking at their future and what they're going to do, about trusting the universe and listening. We always say that the universe says yes, but we have to say yes to the universe as well when something will not let you alone and keeps prompting you. I call it a cosmic 2x4. If you're not listening, you'll finally get the cosmic 2x4. So I listened, and I was supported 100%. I moved here in June of 2009, had my first service in a little white Pentecostal church, which was the only place that would rent to a New Thought community, because, this is the Bible Belt. We're in the South. So I had my first service. I moved here June of 2009. I had 4 gatherings in the house that I was staying with a friend. And at the last Sunday in July 2009, I had my first service, and about 45 people showed up. And so I knew immediately that we were going to grow, and I had 42 people, I think, in my first foundations class.
Wow.
So I know. So I knew within 6 months we had moved to a 5,000 square foot building, which we eventually bought. So I know it was absolutely the right thing to do. And, the universe provided all the way, every day, in every way.
So that was in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And are you still a part of that community?
I retired there at the end of 2022, and that's when I lost my mind and ran for spiritual leader.
So obviously, based on me looking at the internet, that center is still going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how is that, founding a center and then retiring? Do you have, what are your feelings about that? I think because I've done the same. I started a community, I stepped away, but it dissolved and morphed into something else. But I can only imagine if someone had taken the lead and taken it in a direction, other than mine. I wonder how that would be. How was that for you?
Well, let me just say that, first of all, Ahava is the Hebrew word for love. And so when I was getting ready to retire, I, of course, went through the grief process. It was my community. I had built it, along with so many other people, including my wife, who's a practitioner. We worked very hard to support that community and growing and thriving, flourishing. So it was bittersweet, I knew it was time, and I had hired an assistant minister who then turned into my co-minister. And I knew it was time, to leave, so that it could go to its next, through its next evolution. And it's doing that, and it's in good hands. Yeah. And I really got busy with, I never expected to be elected. And then in February of 2023, I was actually elected. So it was hit the road running with a lot of things to do.
Well, we are going to take a short break. And when we come back, I'd love to hear the journey of you being elected and moving into the leadership position of CSL.
Great.
We will be right back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Holmes Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
And we're back with my guest today, Soni Cantrell-Smith, and we are talking about your retiring from your center that you founded to running. I'm imagining that you were running to be elected as leader for Centers for Spiritual Living. So what inspired that for you, and how was that? Going from one thing to another?
How do we get inspired? Well, I do a lot of meditation and prayer work, and I listen a lot. It's kind of like when I was talking about coming to Kentucky and hearing the words, you're going to move to Kentucky. I also really got a very loud message that I was to run for spiritual leader. And I was kind of in awe or amazed, because I know I sound like, come on, you know why you ran or whatever, but I really didn't. I really just listened and put one foot in front of the other. And I think I filled my application out really late to run, and really never, I was okay. To me, running for spiritual leader is a calling. You're the spiritual leader of an international organization, a global organization. And so what we had in place prior to this election in February of 2023 was we had a field leader and a spiritual leader. The field leader's focus was inward, in other words, with all the communities and really working on the inside of our organization. The spiritual leader was working outward, the outward focus. So Parliament of the World Religions, different conferences, travel all over the world. But what happened prior to this election in 2021 or 2022, I cannot remember exactly, is they decided to eliminate the position of field leader and have the spiritual leader with both an inside and an outside focus. Now, prior to my election, the spiritual leader was a part-time position.
Mm.
Now it has become a full-time position with the elimination of the field leader. So when I was elected, which was, as I said before, was a surprise, what happened is I had to recreate this job,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
this responsibility. Running for spiritual leader is a calling. There's no doubt about it. So when I was running, I knew that there were going to be some changes that were significant, but I also knew that whatever the outcome was, that's what the universe was calling forth. Whoever was running for spiritual leader, it was a calling, and that, the universe was calling that forth. So that's why I say I was surprised when I was elected. So I get elected, and then I've got to really recreate this responsibility, this job. And so it's an inward and an outward focus. And it's a tremendous amount of work. And it's also a tremendous amount of doubling and tripling down on your spiritual practices.
Yeah, I would imagine that the work you did opening your center in Lexington sort of just got you, primed and ready for this kind of role, but not really, because it sounds like such a huge, undertaking. And I imagine you have a team that supports you in what you're doing now.
Well, I work with an incredible group of people. Right now, our home office staff is amazing. All our directors and our global support services individuals and all the people that work with them are just amazing and very dedicated to Centers for Spiritual Living. We're really blessed right now in this organization to have such a wonderful group of individuals who are so committed. We also have such a wonderful and amazing leadership council and an acting executive director that is also on top of everything. Someone who really thinks out of the box and is also very committed to Centers for Spiritual Living, as well as the chair of the Leadership Council, Rev Dr. Deb Gordon, who has been in Science of Mind for quite some time. She's from Canada, and her husband is one of the former spiritual leaders for Centers for Spiritual Living. So
yeah, I met them several times at the Big Sky retreat. They would. So, gosh, I'm wondering, what is CSL currently focused on? Like, what are the main things that you are most involved with that is the greater vision, or where the energy is moving currently?
Well, there's several things that are going on with Centers for Spiritual Living. The first thing is that when we got here, or when I got here, I need to say, when I was elected, was not only recreating the job, but really stabilizing the organization. We were just coming out of COVID, and someday we'll be able to not use that phrase, after COVID. But it was really about stabilizing the organization and getting people in place that really understood what we needed to do and how to do it. So that's been our priority. You can't evolve until you are stabilized, if that makes sense. The vision always has to be bigger than the organization. So we have a big vision. And I think one of the things that is happening with Centers for Spiritual Living is we're beginning to see the value in moving from me to we to community. And so our focus right now, one of our priorities, is to not only support our communities, but support due process and to support oneness and equality in the world and equity. So one of the things that is happening is we are really supporting our communities with help, financial help, with something we call the Abundance Program. We have the Evergreen part of it, where in the partnership part of it, where we're connecting communities that are really expanding and having success in certain programs, and then with other communities that are not having that type of success, that may want to try those programs to see if they will support their communities. We have grants that are payback grants that we're helping to support communities in networking and a much larger vision for that community. So these are just a few of the things we're working on. It's really starting to expand also internationally. We have our African market is on fire. Our Spanish-speaking market is on fire. We are now expanding. We're starting to expand more in Europe and in Asia. We are really looking at becoming a global organization and supporting our global market with books, and we're having our global markets do their own translation, so that we're not trying to translate something that is not transferable in another country, so that they can really promote the message of science of mind and the teachings and philosophy of science of mind. So all of that is happening at the same time. I mean, it's incredible what's going on in the world, as well as part of the responsibility, or part of the joy that I get and the blessing, is connecting with other New Thought communities, such as Unity and Anton and INTA and Divine Science, and so many other of these independent communities that are New Thought as well. So that's been a joy, and working together to create a bigger footprint for the New Thought ancient wisdom philosophy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Having worked closely myself with the affiliated New Thought Network, Anton, and knowing, I've been a member, since 97, so quite a long time. And I've seen how that organization has been working towards greater unity within New Thought, the different organizations. And it's such it feels so good, even though I've stepped way back from any kind of leadership within Anton or any other New Thought organization. I have my independent ministry with primarily this podcast and then women's groups in my area. But to see at the retreat that we just attended at Unity Village last month, we heard you and Jim Blake and Michelle Whittington from Unity and Anton there all come up on stage and talk about this greater vision of awakened pathway. And it feels like I can look back and see the evolution of our organization. And years ago, I was a part of UCORS, United Church of Religious Science, and I can see how, forming CSL out of the two different, parts of religious science, and how we are coming together and creating more of a we, and that feels good. And it is a confirmation that the work that we did, independent of the work that was going on at CSL or Unity, the work that Anton did to grow this consciousness of unity, we're realizing, our visions, our prayers coming true. And so I'm excited to see what happens and what grows out of this whole new pathway, or this, coming through COVID, which we don't need to talk about any much more, but how things did. That was a significant time where sort of some of the old fell away, and something new is coming, being born or coming forth. And so what do you see in future with the, and there were other organizations I didn't mention, like Divine Science and so many others, but what do you see as creating this new and awakened pathway will do for this movement? Like 10 years from now, what will we be seeing, do you think?
Well, an awakened path, first of all, is the website, and that should be up a few months into 2026. I think that in 10 years, people will know what New Thought is way more than the limited population knows right now. One of the goals that we have is doing global initiatives all over. Yeah, I mean, campaigns, for example, all of us saying the same thing at the same time for perhaps hunger, world hunger, or food insecurity. What does that say? What are we talking about here? There is an old story about don't give a man a fish, teach them how to fish. But the truth for me is that needs to be modified. Is you can teach a man how to fish, but you got to give him the fish first so he can pay attention, or they can pay attention, right? Hunger is we should not have hunger in the world, period. There should be no hunger. We have more than enough resources to feed the whole planet. So if New Thought is, all of our New Thought communities are rallying around a global initiative or a global campaign to cure or heal world hunger, what would that look like? I mean, it would be amazing. So these are some of the goals. Other goals we have are to take all of our education, such as School of Spiritual Leadership or Emerson or Unity School of Leadership. And why aren't we all taking classes together, creating our own path? Perhaps it's Centers for Spiritual Living or Unity, but we can also cross-train so that we all are going forward in the same direction. There's a lot to be said for, you look at Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or any of that, you're talking thousands of years here. How old is New Thought? 150 years, 200 years. We have a lot of work to do, in order to really claim our piece in the world. And I think that this is our time, that we were made for a time such as this. People are ready for us. They're ready to get rid of the guilt. They're ready to get rid of a God outside themselves, or the divine outside of myself, whatever you want to call it, or however you want to look at it. And to know that it really is about service and acting together and moving together as, love in the world. What would love do? And so I think this is our time, this is our calling to really be able to stand in the power and be steeped in the knowingness that love is what really motivates, and we can use love to change the world and to become worldwide, better known New Thought organization, an awakened path. Let's do it.
Mm. Yeah, it seems like the world that we live in at the moment has created this atmosphere that really says to us new thoughters, now is your time, because it's so up right now.
Mm-hmm.
All of the
Mm-hmm.
things that need to be healed, and I know that you commonly say that reading the newspaper is like reading prayer requests. And I know that Michael Beckwith is, he says that quite often. And we're seeing in the news, we're seeing in real time people struggling to such degree. There's such division and othering, that an inequality, that yeah, we were made for these times. And there's so many ways that our leadership, our centers, I'm talking about New Thought, our individuals can organize themselves, their visions, their actions into, knowing what to do, what's ours to do. My ministry is a podcast, but there's thousands of others that are, helping with cleaning the water, or food distribution,
Mm-hmm.
or, having meditations, or bringing what we've been teaching in New Thought for 150 years out into the marketplace, out into the everyday world. And we're seeing that as well. Besides for all the things that are going wrong, we also see, what we've been teaching in regards to spiritual principles is now in the bookshops. Like, it's common. It used to just be like with Oprah, or a few
Mm-hmm.
people would share some of these sort of, how to manifest or the secret. But now it's very usual to have a spiritual practice that doesn't necessarily have the dogma that older traditions and faith traditions have. But now we're sort of, the cream is rising, so to speak. All the effective principles and practices that we've been preparing for the last 50, 60 years, and now
Mm-hmm.
we're primed and ready. And so
Mm-hmm.
where do you see, and we only have a couple of minutes left, where do you see you, like, what's your, I know that you've got this big role at the moment, and I don't know how long your term is, but what do you see as for you in the future? I know you've been involved in music, you've been involved with recovery, you've been involved with building communities. So what's up for you, Soni?
Well, my term is complete April of 2026, and I'm actually running for 3 more years.
Yay.
I made the decision to go ahead and run for another 3 years, because I really believe that we're right there, and we're ready to make that next evolution. And I have some work that I want to see completed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's important to me to be part of that vehicle, that's driving the car along with so many other people that really love this organization. And as I said before, working with other organizations to really get that footprint into the world. So that's what's up for me right now. There's a couple projects I'm working with. There's a couple of TikTok projects. I'm working with some younger people in our organization. And there's some other things that may be coming down the pike soon, but I'm just taking it one step at a time and doing what is the next indicated step and what is right in front of me. Beyond that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So we've all heard the song "What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love," and you've mentioned, how central love is to the healing of the planet and creating a greater beloved community. So what else does the world need now? On your website, CSL website, I see a lot of interesting things. I see there's emphasis on equality, of speaking up for those that seem to not have a voice at the moment, or their voice trying to be quietened or disappeared. And I'm wondering, what does the world need now?
Compassion. Compassion for one another. Nobody, the old song, "Walk a Mile in My Shoes." We don't really understand what other people, and that's the othering again, what our friends and families and neighbors, we don't know what their experience is. We only know what our experience is. One of the things that I do quite a bit is really look at my hidden biases, or where do I need to take an inward look here. And I think it's really important that we all do that. Nobody has all the answers, and anytime we think, for me, as I'm speaking for myself, anytime I think I have all the answers, I'm not asking the right question.
That's beautiful.
And so, yeah, compassion for ourselves, and compassion for our neighbors and friends and families, and those who are really being preyed upon, not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E-Y upon right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Soni. This conversation has landed right here, and I wish you every blessing on your path, and to the CSL community and the we that will be really up and online in the first quarter of next year, as an awakened path.
Awakened path, yeah.
Look forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Allie. I appreciate the invitation. It's been a blessing to be with you today. And thank you for all that you do for the world.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us live, and thank you to New Thought Media Network for this production and all of our productions. And thank you to the Satya Center for Conscious Living, our sponsor. And thank you to you for being here, for taking all of the wisdom that Soni has shared, and the wisdom from all of our guests, and putting that into action in some way in your life. Peace and blessings to you. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.